It is very disturbing that we are here on day 12 of the Republican government shutdown, but it is even more disturbing when we heard the point of order that was made just a little while ago. The point of order that said that October 1, the special rule that was passed, that what has happened by that vote, the vote again by the majority party, that says only the majority leader or his designee can bring the matter of calling up by motion the ability to rule, the ability to ask people to vote on the continuing resolution as amended by the Senate. In this process of not only shutting down government, what we have also done is shut down the people's right to the representative form of government. So all of us, 435, which are mandated in our laws to be the members of the House of Representatives, only one and his designee or his designee has the right to bring forward this critical issue that the people throughout this nation are asking for a resolution. Only one can do it. Yes, it passed by the majority of the Republican votes in this House. But not only have we shut down government, not only have we made things unbearable for the people, but now we've deprived them of their representative form of government. That, Mr. Speaker, is something that the people should be absolutely outraged about. I would like to begin this special order by first yielding to the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Doggett.
Well, I would ask the gentlelady about the number of federal employees you have in your area that remain unable to do their work.
The gentleman from Texas, I appreciate the inquiry. As you may probably be aware, Hawaii, because of its unique location and its location before the time that we were a state, has a large federal presence, and a lot of them are in the military. So because of the actions of both this House, plus the Senate, plus the President, about 20,000 of them are defense, and the last time I was able to check, we just have a small handful that are yet not back to work. But we do have a large number who did not work. What is being impacted now is the fact that the other agencies who had some funds, like for example the courts, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and the other people like, for example, the State Department, all of them were watching very carefully. But we have an additional somewhere between 6,000 to 9,000 that are being affected. But as the gentleman knows, it's not only them, it is the people they service, and it's their families that are being impacted.
That's exactly what I wanted to explore with you. First, all of those public service workers continue, whether they're at work or not at work, to face the uncertainty of whether their paycheck will arrive when the car payment is due, or when the rent is due, or when they need to buy another round of groceries. They don't know if that check will be there. And I think that there are some people out there across our country that are watching this shutdown, and they're saying, well, at least we're saving some money by not paying hundreds of thousands of workers across the country, federal employees who are not yet able to return to work. But in fact, isn't it true that under the Tea Party faction rule here in the Republican Party, they have passed a resolution through this House to pay every one of those hundreds of thousands of federal workers to stay idle, pay them not to work at a time that they could be delivering the services they were hired to provide, so the taxpayer has to pay them to stand idle and cannot receive the benefits of the many varied services that these public service workers would like to provide.
The gentleman is absolutely correct that we as the House of Representatives unanimously passed that bill that we would pay the furloughed workers. But you are also absolutely correct that still, because the government is shut down and the Republican position is to open up government piecemeal with no concurrence on the Senate part, that's exactly what's going to happen. So many of these federal workers feel like, why can't we get to work? Because we're getting paid to get to work. Why isn't that happening? And I believe that that's clearly a disservice not only to the workers themselves, but to the people of this great nation. It makes no sense.
Well, it's a...
I think it's the gentleman's time, if he's willing to yield.
Yes.
I yield.
Last weekend I left and I went to Florida, and many people in church came up to me and they wanted to know, they're not federal employees, they're contract employees. So therefore they do service for the federal government, but they will not get paid. Is that correct?
That is correct. And you know, the other thing that happens, suppose you have a cafe across the street from a major federal installation. Suppose you have a dry cleaners, a service station, or auto repair. Your business has fallen through the floor because that workforce is not there not only to do the public's work, but to do business with you. And there is not any plan from this irresponsible Tea Party caucus to reimburse the many small businesses around America, as well as the contractors to whom you refer, to give them a dime. So they will suffer at the same time they pay federal workers not to work and not to deliver the service that they were hired and are willing to provide.
Lockheed Martin, sir, if you continue to yield, indicated that they were going to lay off over 3,000 employees. So there are many companies that do work with the federal government. Because the federal government is shut down, then they're going to furlough their employees that's not going to be paid.
That's one of the reasons that I feel that with every hour that we go through this government shutdown, every hour that we get nearer to a default, a historic default on the full faith and credit of the United States, we are jeopardizing the security. And your comments regarding Lockheed, we're talking about the national security of the United States, but I'm also talking about the economic security of your fellow church members, of our veterans, because almost a fourth
veteran.
Yes.
We had the Secretary of VA come to our committee. He indicated by 1st of November, if he did not have his appropriations, over 5,000 veterans and their families and their spouses would not get their benefits in the mail.
I view that as a real disgrace. And this week in Texas, as we attempted to call in San Antonio and Austin to the Veterans Administration about problems some of our veterans were having, they said they turned off their equipment. They'd furloughed some of the representatives that we work with. I'm sure that happened in your areas also, so that we cannot be the advocate we want to be for our veterans. Additionally, I think it's around a little over a fourth of our federal workforce are veterans. They are people who have served our country, put their lives on the line, and now they are serving our country in a different way. And those are some of the families, some of them being paid not to work, all of them, whether they're at work now or not, uncertain, left with great economic uncertainty about when they'll get paid.
The list goes on and on. For example, we've furloughed most of the HUD employees, so we're going to have more homeless veterans. The list goes on and on. Cemeteries, furloughed cemetery employees. It is, and the other issue, if we default on Thursday, then the Social Security payments will not be made. But these people in this House of Representatives want to operate by management. For example, yesterday I heard over the news the number of cattle that had died or been killed because of the storm. We came back the next day and did the farm bill because everyone had been furloughed. They can't even provide the assistance they usually provide. So we're doing management by, well, we're going to tackle this. But there is a whole array of services that we're not picking up. For example, when you look at the number of, let's say, the number of people that work at the universities. Well, they check says universities, but they're really from the National Foundation or Mayo.
You're talking about like a cancer researcher or someone who's working on childhood disease.
Alzheimer's research. So all of this work is brought to a halt for no reason.
For no good reason.
For no good reason.
And that's why, you know, it is outrageous that we could be here on this Saturday and the Republicans have recessed the House until Monday night. They know that this default is approaching. They've outlined no plan to avoid default. They had one coming up on the floor 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they could not get agreement among their own members about how to avoid default. And now, at a time when you, like all of us who are here, have signed a petition to reopen the government and be prepared to address the default issue right here, they've gone home. Mr. Cantor was here on the floor a few minutes ago. He is the only one under the rules, the Republican majority leader, that they will permit to offer the motion to continue operation of the government. That's why we turned, as you know, to this petition, so that all of us coming together, and we're approaching now, headed toward 200 members of the House. We only need about 17, 18 Republicans to come join with us, and we can reopen this House and then move to address the default issue.
The sad issue here in the House is that the minorities have we have no rights.
Because they were specifically, as you know, cut off in the rules. The rules of the House that have existed for so many years would accord the gentlewoman from Florida, the gentlewoman from Hawaii, any of our colleagues who are here now from across the country, the right to say, Mr. Speaker, let us vote on continuing the operation of the government. Now, why would they deny us that traditional right as members of the Congress, all members, Republicans and Democrats, and give Mr. Cantor, as the Republican majority leader, the sole right to do that? I say it's because of fear. They are fearful that this House will continue the government operations, and they can no longer hijack the country the way they have hijacked the Republican caucus and jeopardized the security of our families.
Well, in the Veterans Committee, the veterans members kept alluding to the Senate, the Senate, the Senate. Let's be clear. The Senate passed the bill, and I thank God for the Senate. They passed the bill, took the House numbers, which was unacceptable to all of the Democrats, unacceptable, took those low numbers in order to pass a continuing resolution so we could have discussions. But what happened to the House? They're missing in action because there's no leadership on the Republican side.
I would thank the gentlewoman from Hawaii for the opportunity to join with her on this, because the numbers that she refers to is back during the summer, and Speaker Boehner acknowledged this last Sunday on ABC. There was an understanding reached between the House and the Senate that Democrats would compromise and agree to a level of government services that we think is totally unacceptable. It is a
Would
level.
you repeat that again, sir?
There was an understanding that he acknowledged reached between the House and the Senate that we Democrats, in order to keep the government functioning, would agree on, for a time this fall, to accept an unacceptable low number that we know won't deliver the level of services needed for Head Start, for education, for cancer research.
Sir, are you saying that the Democrats in the House held their nose and voted for the Republican irresponsible numbers?
We've said we will do that now if it will keep our government open and protect our families and avoid default, open the government. And it is that motion, not a motion to give us all that we have asked for, but a motion to take the Republican budget number and put it in place as a compromise. I must say, not a very good compromise, not a very favorable compromise.
Say it again.
But
we
agreed.
lost on the compromise.
We agreed to do that. The Speaker indicated that he had agreed to that, and then this Tea Party faction took control. The Shutdown Caucus, and there's the gentlewoman from Hawaii.
Sir, a conversation. Can we have a conversation? Can we have a conversation? Can you repeat what you just said again? Conversation? You mean to tell me that the Speaker had a negotiation with the House and with the Senate, on the Republicans' low levels that was unacceptable to the Democrats in the House? We held our nose and voted for would be willing to vote for it if they bring it up in order to move forward and get a conversation going. Mr. Speaker, we just want a conversation.
Well, I want to yield back to the gentlewoman from Hawaii, and in doing so and thanking her for this time, the reason that it is alleged that they would not continue to stand by the agreement that was made between the House and the Senate for this bad number was they wanted to shut down the Affordable Care Act and our opportunity to get health insurance for millions of Americans. And as the gentlewoman from Hawaii knows, they have failed utterly and completely to do that. They are now in search of some other rationale, some rationalization, some justification for keeping the government down. I need to yield back to the gentleman.
Just one other question, though. Just one other question. I want to know how many times did the Republicans pass their bad bill in the House and then send it over to the Senate, and they think that the Senate's supposed to pick up their bad bill. How many times did they pass it?
Well, they have
44?
They have passed little partial bills many times.
No, I'm talking about on the health repeal.
Oh, they have sent that over there, I guess, 40 times to repeal.
No, I think it was 44.
44.
44.
One can lose counting because they do it every time they turn around.
Sure do.
But I thank the gentlewoman from Florida, the gentlewoman from Hawaii. This totally unjustified shutdown must end, and we must stand for American families to avoid the insecurity, the threat to them that grows by the hour. I yield back.
Thank you to the gentleman from Texas. And I think what we need for everyone to understand clearly, what the gentleman from Texas was referring to is the level of funding in the continuing resolution, which was amended by the Senate at $986 billion. And as the gentlewoman from Florida said, for many of the Democrats, that was not acceptable. But you know what? The Democrats haven't had the opportunity to vote because it hasn't come to the floor. But it's a compromise.
Well, the gentle lady, yes. But we have agreed. We've compromised. We've had a conversation. We have agreed to put our politics aside and do what is in the best interest of the United States of America. It is unfortunate that we have people that serve in the House of Representatives, supposed to be the people's house, and they do not care about the people of the United States of America. They only care about their petty politics.
That is right, and thank the gentlewoman from Florida. Ms. Brown, are you going to speak on further? Or
I think I've said everything that I needed to say.
And we thank you because
But I do want to say one thing jokingly. I went home last weekend, and I was looking for some snake oil, since they said that Cruz had given the House Republicans snake oil. I couldn't find any snake oil, but I did find some holy oil, and I asked my pastors to pray for us because we need all the prayer we can get. Thank you, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you to the gentlelady from Florida. And now I'd like to yield to the gentleman from California, Mr. Honda.
Thank you very much, and I want to thank the gentlelady from Hawaii, and I'm sure that she's found many members of her ohana here.
Thank you.
And I just have to say offhandedly that this was a wonderful, candid interchange, one that needs to be heard, witnessed, participated with because the way the rules of the House are set up, there's very little exchange between the different parties here on the floor. The rules are very rigid, and it disallows debate and interchange of ideas and a discussion. A discussion that's very, very needed in this country, because through this discussion that we just had, as candid and as colorful and as interactive as it was informative. And hopefully that the information that was shared between the gentleman from Texas, the gentlewoman from Hawaii and from Florida would have been helpful and raised some questions in the minds of individuals who are watching us and listening to us, and perhaps asking themselves, is this all true? Hopefully it will drive them to check it out and see if the information that was exchanged was valid and factual. I believe that we'll find that it is.
I want to say aloha and mahalo. You're from California, but as far as I'm concerned, you've been a great friend of Hawaii all along, and your concern of the shutdown, I know, is not only for your constituents in California, but the constituents of the United States, but and I know us in Hawaii, we also have a special place in your heart. So I thank the gentleman.
Thank you, and as our past Senator would have said, mahalo, sister. Well, Mr. Speaker, I came here from California. My friend Ms. Hanabusa comes from the islands of Hawaii. All of us here in this body came here to do things that will make our country better, to help us build a more perfect union. We have different ideas on how we would do that, but like in the medical field, we should observe one rule before all else: do no harm. We should not be causing unnecessary suffering, inflicting unnecessary pain on our country, on our economy, and those that sent us here to try to improve their lives. Here we are on day 12 of the Republican government shutdown, and less than a week from an unprecedented government default. And every day that the Republican majority does not allow a clean vote to reopen the government and give us a long-term certainty on the debt ceiling, they are violating that most important rule: do no harm. Critical child care, nutrition support, life-saving research, small business capital, high-tech and groundbreaking research and development, home loans, affordable housing, veterans benefits, tax support, visas and passports are all negatively affected. And the list goes on and on to touch nearly every sector of the economy, with the cost to our economy compounding every day. $50 billion is the estimated cost to the economy over a month's time. As we get closer and closer to defaulting on our debt obligations, we are causing more and more undue harm to our economy. A failure to make payments on any part of our debt for any amount of time would cause severe disruptions in the global financial markets, downgrade the credit worthiness of the United States, and do long-term harm to the economy. If we defaulted, Social Security, Medicare, and veterans benefits could all be disrupted. Retirement accounts would be devastated. State and local governments might be forced to default, and their ripple effects would be felt all over the world. Mr. Speaker, time is running out, and the world is watching. There's nowhere for us to hide from our obligations. Let's start the process of ending this manufactured crisis. Let's stop inflicting unnecessary harm to our economy and to our people. Let's lift this cloud from over our economy and have the vote that the Americans have been waiting for. And let me just close with my friend with this other personal comment and observation. We know that the phrase PTSD, and we know that it's devastating effects on people. I suspect the kinds of things that we're doing here or not doing here is causing a massive and inflicting a massive PTSD upon our seniors, our families, those who are trying to make ends meet. So I appreciate you doing this for us. Thank you. I'll yield back.
Thank you to the gentleman from California. The gentleman from California makes great points, which is that we are never fully aware of the impacts, and that is what is the saddest part of what has been done with the shutdown, is that we do not know what is the true impact. I can say for my Democrat colleagues, that is the reasons why we fight so hard on trying to reopen government. But the question is, for the majority party, and especially for the Speaker, what about the people? And he raises a great point. I just would like to share something before I call upon the gentlelady from Illinois, that I just learned recently in visiting with some of the probably the most decorated and members of the greatest generation, members of the acclaimed 100th and 442nd Regiment in Hawaii. I mean, everyone knows about them. And one person came up to me and said, you know, we found out that though our fathers sort of suffered quietly as a result of that war and the result of the rejection by a nation that didn't want them, that they were suffering from PTSD. We just didn't know that it was called that back then. And I think the gentleman from California makes an amazing point, that we have got to see the hidden injuries. Because if we can all look upon the hidden injuries, no one on both sides of the aisle can let this craziness continue. And with that, I yield to the gentlelady from Illinois, Ms. Busto.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate this opportunity, and I also appreciate that you are talking about the human consequences of this shutdown. That is what I have been doing for the past couple weeks now, is trying to draw attention to the human consequences of this senseless government shutdown, because this is about people we are here to serve. And now week 2 into this crisis. So what I've been doing during this is spending a lot of time on the telephone, talking firsthand with the people from my region of Illinois who are suffering through no fault of their own. And today I'd like to share a story about a family who not only wants a piece of the American dream, but is striving to achieve that and is working their tails off to achieve just a piece of the American dream. This is a story about a woman named Jill King. She's a wife, a mother of 2 young girls, and a disabled veteran from Moline, Illinois. Jill also happens to be now a federal employee who works at the Rock Island Arsenal, which is the largest employer in the district I'm here to serve. On top of all that, Jill has gone back to college as a way to continue her education. And her husband, also a veteran, who lost his job recently, has gone back to school to increase his employment opportunities. You see, all they want to do is provide a better life for their 2 young girls. They're ages 4 and 6. One's a preschooler, one's a first grader. But because of this government shutdown, Jill has been furloughed and is afraid that now she'll lose her VA benefits on top of it. With her husband back in school, not knowing where their next paycheck is going to come from, Jill and her husband are rightly worried about how they're going to make their home mortgage payment, or for that matter, even pay just their most basic bills. Jill and her husband worked very hard for a number of years in order to buy a home. They had to rent to save that money. They have never missed a payment of any sort. They've never even been late with any payment. So now what Jill is left doing is calling her banks just to talk about the what-ifs, because like many people throughout the country, they don't know what the next steps are. They've had to cut back, and Jill has even had to stop going to her doctor appointments because of the injuries that she's been treated for that are associated with her military service. Her husband now is considering dropping out of school in order to bring home more money to help their family. And Jill is applying now for a second job. What especially worries her is that if she has to work both night and day, and with her husband now not sure what he's going to have to do as far as his education or going back to work, is that her children, again, ages 4 and 6, might have to be at the babysitter not only during the day but at night now. And I would ask any mother, or for that matter, any parent who thinks that that's acceptable. There's so much sacrifice that we have asked of our veterans and their families. And in this case, we are asking so much for this family that all they want to do is do better. Jill King and her family want more from their government. And on week 2 of the shutdown, I ask of this Congress to do what's right for families like Jill. That's nothing more than let's talk, shake hands, work together, be civil, be kind, and allow Congress to vote on a measure that simply reopens this government. We've been talking this morning and now into the afternoon that the votes are there. Republicans and Democrats together, but only together, can reopen this government. We can do it right now. We can do it right this minute, for that matter. And I think everybody here today, at least here today, would say, let's do that. Let's bring this up for a vote. Let's open government. Let's do what's right for Jill King, for her family, and for all the families throughout this country. And with that, I yield back the rest of my time.
If the gentlelady would stay just for a little conversation with
Sure.
you. I had the opportunity to actually go to Rock Island, and I know people are probably saying, what is somebody from Hawaii doing in Rock Island? But I also want people to know how difficult it must be for Jill, because Rock Island Arsenal, what many may not be aware of, is the last foundry of the United States Army we have in the United States. And they actually do things like the necessary plates to keep people safe in the Humvees and in the Strikers and things like that. But they are also faced with the question about, as we withdraw or draw down from Afghanistan and as we have drawn down from Iraq, what happens to Rock Island Arsenal and what they are able to do for the military? The whole idea of reset, and what do we do with that? So I can just imagine the uncertainty with sequestration on top of everything else, with the drawdown, and now with this unnecessary shutdown, that it must cause her amazing just critical concern and about the future of her family, and to put on top of that the concern over veterans benefits. I mean, I know, and I would like for you to share, because we've talked about this, how your office has been able to get these kinds of information, because you've actually adjusted your schedule and what your office does to service your constituents. And I'd like for you to say that, because it's so important as to how you have tried to adjust and make things easier for them.
Well, and I appreciate greatly the kind words that you say about the Rock Island Arsenal. It is the largest employer in the entire 7,000 square mile district that I represent, that stretches from Rockford to Peoria to the Quad Cities and so many great towns in between. We have about 8,000 employees there. And here's what they've been going through because of just the nonsense, these votes that have been cast that have hurt government employees who just want to do a good job. You know, so people like Jill and the rest of the employees there, leading up to this, they had to take 6 furlough days. So already that was a cut in their pay. So what they're used to bringing home, that was already cut in their pay. And on top of that, they haven't received pay raises in going on 4 years now. You know, we want to encourage people to go into public service and these jobs that are helping people, helping our military in this case. You had mentioned the armored reinforcement that is built right in the heart of my district at the Rock Island Arsenal. And what that did is early in the conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan, our military men and women were driving in Humvees that did not have armor reinforcement, and they were sustaining horrible injuries and death. And the workers at the Rock Island Arsenal, the foundry, and the manufacturing sector of this, actually developed these and produced these to save countless lives. So the work that the people at the Rock Island Arsenal are doing is meaningful work. It is life-saving work. And look how they've been treated as a result of this. And I appreciate you also bringing up the fact that in light of this government shutdown, we in our office, we have restructured things because we are public servants. We are here to make sure that we are doing everything we can in light of this atmosphere. We have 5 offices in our district in Illinois. We have our office out here, so 6 offices altogether. And what we've done is we've opened our office an hour early, and we stay an hour late. And every single one of our employees, including myself, we all are answering telephones. We are all doing casework. We are all talking to the people who call in about their concern about just what's happening in the government and what can they expect next. What I've learned from this, and something I will continue doing well after the government shutdown, is I will continue answering the telephone calls and reaching out to people, because I never ever want to lose sight of why we're here. You understand it. Our colleagues understand why we're here, and that is to serve people. Government can be a force for good. And where government's in the way, I don't know anybody here who doesn't want to fix that. We want to fix anything that's broken or bent or just needs some tweaking. We want to fix that, but we also know that government can be a force for good. And you know, that's why we run for office. That's why we are out here in Washington, D.C. And that is why it is so disheartening what a few people in Congress have done to this country. And it is time to move to this next level now.
Thank you. Thank you, General Lady from Illinois. And thank you for reaching out so clearly for your constituents. And now I'd like to call upon the General Lady from Oregon, Ms. Bonamici.
Thank you so much. I want to thank my colleague from Hawaii for yielding some time and for this opportunity to talk about the harmful effects, as you said, the hidden injuries of this unnecessary government shutdown. My colleague from Illinois was just talking about the human consequences. We also have to talk about the economic consequences to our constituents and to this country on day 12 of a completely unnecessary government shutdown. I really appreciate this opportunity because our constituents want to hear. We need to get the message out there about the harm that's being caused by this. And like my colleague from Illinois, I've spent a good part of this week on the telephone talking with constituents out in the great state of Oregon. And I have to tell you, people are concerned, they're anxious, they're frustrated. I spoke with our National Guard. There's so much uncertainty out there among the National Guard members about when they'll be paid. Many of them are unable to work. They're anxious. Our community action organization that's designed to help low-income people, they're worried. They're already struggling, some of these families. They don't know if they'll be able to continue getting the assistance they need. Our Head Start organization, you know, if you really want to make a difference in a child's life, early childhood education makes that difference. Our Head Start programs are being threatened. And just a while ago here in this discussion, somebody mentioned healthcare research. I talked to one of our supervisors of healthcare research at Oregon Health and Sciences University. It's clear, it's obvious, healthcare research is not something that can be put on hold and picked up again when the government figures things out. So much is at stake here with the researchers who have dedicated so much time on their research projects and are at a halt because they might need something like NIH approval that they can't get. They are extremely concerned, and here we are on day 12. But I have to say that the government shutdown is not just affecting federal employees and their families, or even those directly connected like government contractors. It's also hurting private sector businesses, and that's what I wanted to highlight in the next couple of minutes. There's a business in my district, Loophole. It's in Beaverton, Oregon. They have about 700 employees. And they manufacture specialized optics. 700 employees in Beaverton, Oregon. They right now have $10 million in orders that they can't ship. They can't ship them because they need export licenses because they sell their scopes and their binoculars and other products overseas. And they get that approval from the U.S. Department of Commerce, Bureau of Industry and Security. So if we can't resolve this government shutdown, they're soon going to lose those sales to foreign competitors. That hurts our economy, it hurts the employees who work there, it hurts the business. And here's another example. Oregon, you might know, is well known for craft beer. A lot of great small businesses, and those people work really hard, brew a great product. In Hillsboro, Oregon, in the district I'm honored to represent, Three Mugs Brewing Company, they're all set to open. They're paying their rent, they're paying their utilities, their business expenses, but they can't start brewing because they need approval from the TTB, that Alcohol, Tobacco, Tax and Trade Bureau. They approve the labels and recipes for brewers. So here's this great small business, an entrepreneur ready to start. They have their store, they have they're paying their rent and expenses. They can't start brewing their beer because of this unnecessary government shutdown. And it's time to end this right now, and we could end it today. I, along with my colleagues here, we signed a petition to open government today. We could end this shutdown now, because across the state of Oregon, as well as across this country, our constituents are more than ready for this government to be back open. And I struggle to understand how they must view this from across the country. We're here in Washington, D.C. We've been here day after day after day, ready to open up the government and get the employees back to work. But what must we look like? So I thought of an analogy. So there's an accident about to happen, and those nearby can prevent the accident, but they don't because they can't agree how to prevent the accident. So the accident happens, and now the victim is bleeding. And the victim's been bleeding for 12 days, but guess what? There's a disagreement about what kind of bandage to put on the victim. That's how absurd this must look to the United States of America. This is an unnecessary government shutdown. It's been 12 days now. Let's get the government open. We can do it today. I hope the Speaker calls us back right now, today, for a vote. The votes are there. We can pass a continuing resolution. Let's pass that resolution, open up the government, and continue the conversation about how to build our economy, get our budget conference committee going. We can do that today, and I hope we do. And I want to thank again the gentle lady from Hawaii for giving us the opportunity to really highlight how this unnecessary government shutdown is hurting our constituents and our economy. Thank you so much, and I yield back.
Thank you very much to the gentlelady from Oregon, who clearly is in her district looking and hearing what her constituents are saying. I will always remember Beaverton, Oregon, and her 700 constituent employees of that company that is unable to ship, because that is really what this is about. We initially reacted to the immediate impact of the federal employees, but now we are beginning to see, as the gentlelady from Oregon pointed out, that it is more than just the immediate employees, contractors who deal with the federal government. It is also the people who need the federal government because of their businesses. So the gentlelady from Oregon has brought forth an amazing story, as well as given us further insight into how this really Republican government shutdown has hurt everyone. And now I'd like to call upon the gentlelady from Florida, Ms. Franco.
First, I'd like to thank the esteemed representative from Hawaii for sharing this time with me. Mr. Speaker, I once again rise and join my colleagues in urging you to allow us to vote to reopen government. I've been up here before, day after day. I've taken a nuanced approach, quoting the wisdom of the popular children's author, Dr. Seuss. But today, the Dr. Seuss gloves come off. It's no wonder that a recent poll of Americans showed that Congress is less popular than hemorrhoids, toenail fungus, dog poop, and cockroaches. Like millions of Americans, I want to put my head out the window and shout, that this standoff is idiotic, and this reckless, irresponsible shutdown has got to stop. Mr. Speaker, as I speak, the earth is in turmoil. Iran is building a nuclear weapon. In Syria, a civil war is killing thousands of women and children. In Nairobi, terrorists attacked innocent shoppers in a retail mall. And in Europe, major countries are going bankrupt. So what does the greatest nation on earth do to set an example for the rest of the world? We hang a sign that says closed for business. And as we try to emerge from a recession that hurt so many of our constituents, we proceed to throw 800,000 patriotic Americans out of a job, leaving them without income to pay their mortgages, their car loans, their children's tuition. Oh, but that's not all. We stopped the funding for Head Start for millions of children and slowed down benefits for veterans who risked their lives and their liberty for our freedoms. Mr. Speaker, this government does not belong to the United States Congress. This government belongs to the people of America, and they are demanding, rightfully so, that we open our government today. Mr. Speaker, let us vote today. Mr. Speaker, if this Congress delays any longer, I respectfully suggest that even the Ebola virus and twerking will overtake us in the polls, and it will be well deserved. I yield my time.
Thank you for my good friend, the gentlelady from Florida, Ms. Franco. And as she always has this capacity of bringing things down to the basics, I would hate to admit that we'd be less popular than the Ebola virus. But knowing the gentlelady from Florida, she probably has good basis for what she has said. Mr. Speaker, my special order time is running down, and I would just like to say, after listening to all of the people who have spoken, the gentleman from Texas, the gentleman from California, the two gentlewomen from Florida, and the gentlewoman from Oregon, and the gentlewoman from Illinois, and all of their stories that they have shared, and the concerns of their constituents, you have got to start to ask the question, why? And what does the Republican majority, Mr. Speaker, intend to gain from this shutdown? Let's also look at this HRES 368 that we passed on October 1st that says the amendment to Clause 4 of Rule 22 that says any motion pursuant to Clause 4 of Rule 22 relating to the House Joint Resolution 59, and we all know that's the CR, may be offered only by the majority leader or his designee. You add this on top of everything else, the inability for people to come forward and on the behalf of their constituents to ask for unanimous consent to bring the House Resolution 59 to the floor, not being able to do that, and the fact that we have a petition, a discharge petition, that people are signing up to because that's the only alternative. Is this the message we want to give to the people of the United States, that not only does the House of Representatives shut down government because of a minority group within the Republican Party that is the majority, but in addition to that, you've taken away the ultimate form of the representative government, which is that each and every one of their elected representatives have a right to come before this body and to make a motion and to be heard. But instead, we've shut that down on October 1st as well. That should be even more problematic to the people of this great nation, that a motion and a rule such as that was passed. And Mr. Speaker, I remind you, nine of your own Republicans couldn't even stomach that and could not vote for that. So why are we doing this? Why? It began with, well, we'll go along with the continuing resolution that the Senate sent back on the condition that we first defund Obamacare. Then we had delays of Obamacare. We had repeals of Obamacare, and that sort of lasted for last week, and then it stopped. No mention of Obamacare. No mention at all of Obamacare. Then what did we start to do? We started to pick and choose and cherry pick which part of government we wanted to open up. And you knew that was DOA, dead on arrival on the Senate, but yet, Mr. Speaker, we decided, well, maybe the optics would be better. But it hasn't been better. It has not been better. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce has come out against not only the failure to address the debt ceiling and saying that the United States cannot default, they also said you shouldn't allow the shutdown. And big businesses have also said that. Banks have said that. People that, you know, the average person probably associates more with the Republican Party than they do with the Democrats. And they're saying, do not do this. Yet, it's being done. It's being done. The people in Hawaii will know this concept. And the concept is save face. You know, we have a saying back home that what people sometimes need to do is save face. And I think that's what it comes down to. The polls, Wall Street Journal polls, are slamming the Republican position, Mr. Speaker. You are being, what, 24% favorability rating? So what does that say to you? It says the people are not with you. The people do not support this crazy, I don't know what to call it. I'd like to say it's a plan, but I can't see anyone being behind a plan that makes the people of this great nation suffer. You heard the story of Jill. You heard the story from the gentleman from California who talks about he knows people are suffering PTSD. You've heard the fears of not being able to know when you will be working and when you're not going to be working. Yes, we in the House passed 3223. I believe that number's correct. That says we will retro pay. But that doesn't give them their paycheck because a continuing resolution hasn't passed. And it hasn't passed the Senate, though we believe the Senate will be with it, and we also believe the President will sign it into law. But for the person, yes, it's like an empty promise. The same empty promise that they believe we had when everyone said, we're not going to shut down government. Why would we shut down government? And here we are. This is the 12th day of the shutdown. Day 12. And do we have anything to tell them? No. Instead, we emphasize the fact that their representatives who want to see a vote because we believe that there are members of the Republican Party who will support a clean CR and the voting to open up government at the level of funding which the Republicans wanted, Paul Ryan wanted. But we are not even able to do that because of a procedural move. Procedural moves are what the people of this great nation dislike the most because they feel that it's some kind of hidden deal and we're not being transparent and we're also not giving people true representation. To abdicate the ability to bring something to the floor as important as the government continuing to operate to one person or his designee is exactly what the people do not want. And that is what we're dealing with, Mr. Speaker. We're dealing with this shutdown for no basis because you've abandoned Obamacare now. There is no ultimate plan. We have the looming debt ceiling crisis, which is what Wall Street is even more concerned about than anything else. and what we should all be concerned about, because the full faith and credit of the United States should never be in question and should never be in jeopardy, because we can cause a recession worldwide with that action. There's no plan. There's no plan. You know, you wanted to show that you could shut down government, Mr. Speaker, so you won. You shut it down. But now, you must plan how to open it. And that has been always a criticism of our great country, that we always lack exit strategies. And this is another example of a lack of an exit strategy. You win the shutdown, but how do you open up? That is the question, Mr. Speaker, and that is the question that only you can answer to the people of this great nation. And only you can answer to the people of this great nation why you've taken away the ultimate form of representative government by abdicating the right to bring this most critical measure to this floor to one person or his designee. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.